In this video, let's take a look at how we can create moving averages, which should help us going from looking at data like this, which can be very spiky and hard to interpret, to crafting moving averages, which can make our data look a lot more smoothed out and easier to interpret trends happening within our data sets. So you can see that this is calculating a 7-day moving average, which is actually showing some trends in our data compared to looking at our daily sales data, which can look very spiky and hard to interpret. So let's walk through how we can create moving averages of different time periods. Now, if we're working with our data set and we have some daily sales data, let's go through how we can create different moving averages. And some common averages you might want to calculate are 3, 5, 7, even 14-day moving averages. So let's go through a few examples. Now, we're any period of time we're looking to create the moving average, we want to make sure that we have at least that many periods of data to create the moving average off of. So to create a 3-day moving average, we can use the average function in Excel, and we can highlight over the past 3 days of sales data, and we'll close that formula. Then as we drive this down, we'll have a rolling 3-day average, as this formula will just keep taking the average of the previous 3 days. So this gives us a lot more smoothed out data set just using the last 3 days of data. And then the same process goes for going to create a 5-day moving average. We'll just make sure that we select 5 periods of data. I could call that down. And the same thing with 7 or any other period of time that we're interested in. So we'll make sure that we highlight 7 rows of data, and then we can drag that down. Now, if we want to start visualizing our data, we can highlight over our data set, go to Insert, and we can create a line graph to see our different moving averages. And let's drag this up to the top so we can see it easier. All right, and we'll just quickly do some formatting. We'll just call this sales. All right, and now if we click into this little filter icon, we can unselect some of the moving averages. So back to the graph we showed at the beginning, where if we're just looking at this data set, it can be very hard to interpret if there are any meaningful trends happening in it. But as we click back into the filter and select different moving averages, such as a 5-day, we can see that January was some lower sales data that picked up into February, and we're seeing some larger increases heading into March. And same with a 7-day moving average, an even more smoothed out version, starting to show some upward trends. So it can be a very helpful way to visualize and look at your data on a more deeper level. And within Excel, there's another way that we could look to add a moving average. Should we right-click on our data and we go to Add Trend Lines, we can see that there are a few options, and one including the moving average. And for the moving average period, we would just want to do the same thing that essentially our average function was doing. And if we wanted to look at a 7-day moving average, we could hit 7 there. And let's delete this other one. Here we can see the 7-day moving average graph, which will look very similar to this one that we calculated ourselves. So that's the importance of using a moving average to help smooth out your data, and will help visualize underlying trends, especially if there are larger spikes within any individual days of data. So something to keep with you in your data analysis toolkit and incorporate into your Excel work.